Hey everyone, my name's Heather Gray and I'm over at choosetohaveitall.com. There I share my passion with people for choosing the lives we want, and I work with people to identify what it is they want, and then I help them learn the steps necessary for getting it. Yesterday I was in a business Facebook group of mine and I made this post and I kind of declared a bold statement that to get to your hell yes, you need to be willing to say hell no first. And a colleague of mine kind of said, you need to go on Facebook Live and teach people how to do that. So here I am working with you guys today on that and a little mini training on boundary setting. And the reality is that if you want a life that's bigger and bolder than the life you want now, either personally or professionally, or if you want a relationship that's more personally satisfying, you're going to need to learn how to set healthy boundaries, because for as long as I've been doing this, and I've been in the clinical space working with folks for over a decade, close to 2 decades, if I'm honest and want to admit that, show my age a little bit. Everything you want is probably on the other side of a boundary that you're not setting. And I think that anytime we talk about boundaries and we talk about the lives that we deserve, the things that we want in life that we should get to have, a lot of people go around and they click the like button on that, they share it with their friends, and everybody feels really good. But the reality is that if as many people who are liking and sharing those concepts were actually living those concepts, I think we'd have a lot more healthier, happier people in our world than we currently do. And the reality is I think that most of us know that it's important to set boundaries. Most of us know that we can't let people walk all over us, that we have to lean into our preferences to be able to identify for ourselves what it is we want, the kind of lives we want to have. But at the end of the day, people don't know how to set the boundary, and they're scared to set the boundary. The reality is that if you're setting a boundary, by definition, you're telling someone that they want to be closer to you than you want to be to them. You're letting somebody down. The moment you set a boundary, you're disappointing somebody. You're usually saying no. And you're kind of, giving the hand to somebody, always hopefully respectfully and kindly and with sympathy. But the reality is that if we want the lives we want for ourselves, that means that we have to say no to other people. We have to increase our comfort level with conflict, and we have to increase our comfort level with disappointing people. And so often they talk about like, well, no, I don't want to disappoint somebody because what if they don't like me? In business, people are afraid to set boundaries because they're afraid to disappoint their boss or to get in trouble. Or if they own their own business, they're afraid to lose clients or new business coming in the door. And they feel kind of held hostage to that idea, as if they don't get to protect themselves a little bit in their own interests. And the reality is that everything we want in our lives is on the other side of a boundary that we're not setting. If we want that big life, if we want the more extra time, if we want time with our family, a better, closer relationship, a business filled with ideal clients and people who respect our time and boundaries, we're going to need to say no to the people who don't understand or respect the limits that we have in place to protect those things. And so sort of lesson number 1 in boundaries is that you can't wait until you're comfortable setting it. And I think sometimes people have that as a story, right? Like they tell themselves like, oh, I'm not ready yet. I don't feel so sure. I know you're right, Heather. You're totally right. I know I need to do it. I'm not ready yet. And the reality is you can't get ready for a hard conversation sitting in your chair, waiting for that sort of comfort and peace to suddenly find you. The answer and the key sort of ingredient here is that you have to be uncomfortable, but do it anyway. The only way you get comfortable with boundaries is after the boundary has been set. Nobody wants to disappoint somebody. Nobody wants to say no or deal with the pushback. Yesterday, I was in a business group And somebody was saying, like, listen, everybody's taking advantage of me. It seems like they want to be friends with me so that they can get my advice for free. And, and one of the things that I said is that pushback isn't a reason not to set the boundary. That just because people may disagree with you, just because people may be offended by what it is you have to say, that isn't a reason not to set a boundary. And you can't judge the success of your boundary based on how other people are going to respond. Because the reality is that if you're saying no to somebody, if you're saying, I'm sorry, not this time, they get to be disappointed and you still get to set the boundary. But the reality is that discomfort stops a lot of people. And I think it's because we just struggle with finding the words sometimes. So I thought it'd be helpful today if I spend some time talking to you about those words and the specific type of script you can use when you're telling somebody who wants to be closer to you that actually they need to stay where they are. And the reality is that transparent communication is your best friend. So for example, earlier today, somebody was asking me if I wanted to get together for coffee. And I said, actually, no, I have a training later today. I'm doing a training on Facebook Live. I'm not going to be able to do coffee. And she sort of said, well, just, it's your business. It's your Facebook Live account. Just do coffee later or just do the training tomorrow. But the reality is I'd already set my schedule. So I had to say to her, listen, like, I'd love to catch up. I miss talking to you. I miss seeing you too. I do want to have time together, but I'm not going to cancel out on people simply because they're nameless, faceless people on the internet who quote unquote probably won't care anyway. That doesn't feel fair to me. So I said no to coffee and I disappointed a friend to show up for a training when in actuality, she's right. Like, I don't think any of you watching this would have particularly cared if I showed up tomorrow for it instead of today. But I cared because I said that this is what I was going to do today. I had set it up as a challenge. I had sort of already told people yesterday that they could expect me here and they had questions and not to worry because I was going to answer them, and not disappointing people in that arena was really important to me. So that meant that I had to disappoint a friend for people that I probably likely don't know and won't ever meet. But that's what my value is as a business owner and as a coaching professional. So that's why I'm here today talking to you instead of sitting across this, somebody at a coffee shop. But that's the way it goes. And she may not agree with me. You might not agree with me. Some of you might be thinking like, Heather, you own your own business. Like, the part of like doing that is to have time freedom and to get to set your schedule. And don't you want to take advantage of that to see your friends? And the reality is people disagreeing with your choices and your values, or with my choices and my values, isn't a reason to change your values. But owning that and getting really comfortable in that takes some time, because the reality is that when I said no, I did feel bad. I did feel, well, like, how important really is a Facebook Live training? Do I really need to keep the schedule? Am I just being controlling? Am I just being kind of, bossy about it? But the reality is at the end of the day, beginning, middle, and end, this was important to me. I had to show up for you, so I had to disappoint a friend. And that's the way it goes. But here I am now sitting, talking to you on time. I had kind of posted it earlier today that I would be here. And I'm so glad that I set the boundary. A simple no put me in a place where I'm kind of modeling in action and in real time, like everything that I believe and everything I hope for myself, but also for each of you. Because the reality is that until we start to say no, until we start to be willing to disappoint people, have those tough conversations, we're still stuck in other people's priorities. And that just doesn't change. So part of it is I want to walk you through how to have that conversation, because I talked earlier about it involving transparent communication. And for some of you who know me have probably heard me say that before, but other people who don't know me might not really know what I'm talking about. And, here's the thing is that if you're communicating transparently, you are telling people what you want them to think. You're telling them the reason you're turning them down. You're telling them any feelings you have about having to turn them down, and you're reinforcing your personal boundary and value. So when I said to my friend, listen, I know you probably don't understand it, and I know it probably doesn't make sense to you, but this is really important to me. And I can't just be willy-nilly with my schedule and decide that I can change my trainings on the drop of a dime just because a coffee date came up. And you might not understand that, and you might not agree with me, but I hope you'll understand that this is really important to me and support me anyhow. And that's kind of how the conversation went. And I don't know if she agreed with me at the end of the day. She sort of was acquiescent about it, and certainly, certainly understood where I was coming from. But at the end of the day, she still might have walked away from that conversation disappointed. But again, that's not a reason not for me to have that conversation. So when you're saying no, or you're telling somebody that you're uncomfortable with something that they're saying or doing, or a request that they have, you lead with no. Don't pussyfoot around it. Don't wait. Say, no, I'm sorry, I can't. If you are regretful about it, if you do genuinely wish you could do it, say so. Explain why, and then just let them know that you hope they'll understand. And then recognize that they may push back. Because think about little kids, right? If you tell a little child that their bedtime is at 7 o'clock, and they start to kind of say, but is it really 7 o'clock? Because my belly hurts. Is it really 7 o'clock? Because I'm kind of thirsty, or I'm afraid of a monster under a bed. They're testing the limit. And we are all just grown-up kids who test limits sometimes. Because if somebody can push back and win what they want and get what they want and get their need met, then they don't need to keep having the conversation. So part of it is looking at the reality that if you're going to say out loud what it is you want, sometimes you are going to get that pushback. Sometimes you are going to get that conflict. So you stay steady and say, listen, I already explained it to you. I would have if I could, but this is why I can't. I hope you'll understand. If you get pushback again, you kind of stop the conversation, because you're at the point now where you simply need to agree to disagree. This isn't going to change. You've said no to someone, or you've said that they've hurt your feelings somehow, or you've had that hard conversation and you've asked them to stop talking or to see your point of view. Whatever the boundary is, you can fill in the blank for your own situation. And again, if you have questions, certainly pop them in the comments and I can address them after the video. But you've let them know what you think. You've let them know where you stand, and you're now at the point where they simply disagree, and you don't have to continue the conversation. I think one of the reasons why people avoid the boundary is they're avoiding the conflict. And what you don't recognize for yourselves, and what's really important to see, is you kind of end up choosing whether or not you're going to engage in the conflict. You are entirely in control of that conversation and of that interaction. So if you don't want to have the conversation anymore, you sort of have said your piece and have said, listen, I know you disagree. I know you wish I had a different answer for you, but I don't see the value in continuing this conversation. But rather, I think what happens is we keep getting if I explain this and I say that and I tell them this and I rationalize with that, then they will understand why I have to say no. Then they will not be mad at me. And the reality is you can explain yourself to Kingdom Come and people can still be mad at you. So if that's true, why the heck am I preaching to all of you about boundaries? And those of you who know me know that this isn't my first time getting on a rant and preaching about boundaries. And the reality is because we don't get the value in our lives, we don't get the kickback, the reward, the feel-good feelings until we're on the other side of that hard conversation. The reason why boundaries are so important is because we feel better, we feel aligned, we feel centered, and we feel respected when our boundaries have been set and upheld. They're not always respected because we don't have control over that part. People can keep pushing back on us whenever they want. It's on us to stay steady and to stay the course. But when we take care of what it is we want, when we sort of demand to be treated a certain way by somebody, and we get on the other side of that hard conversation, we feel more ourselves, we have more energy, and ironically enough, we have more to offer because we're sitting in a place of self-respect rather than a place of feeling manipulated, used, taken advantage of, or something else of that nature. Because the boundaries we're not setting are prioritizing other people. As soon as we start to prioritize ourselves, as soon as we start to say, this doesn't fit in my life, I need less of this, or I need more of that, and we move towards it mindfully, we're happier, we're more aligned with ourselves, we're living more authentic lives, and we get to have more energy to help people. But so long as we're being held back because we're afraid people won't like us, we're afraid people won't care about the things that we care about, or we're afraid that there's going to be some sort of unimaginable conflict, we're stuck in someone else's priorities and someone else's agenda, and there's no possible way that we can get the rewards for being happy because we're stuck in someone else's priority. We have to step out of that and into the things that we care about in order to have the lives that we want. And that happens personally, it happens professionally, and it happens in relationships. Now, yesterday in that group discussion that I was talking about that kind of prompted this conversation, someone said, hey, you know what, Heather, I have no problem setting boundaries with other people. I have a problem with setting boundaries with myself. If I've said that I'm not going to eat something particular, unhealthy today, or I'm going to go to bed earlier, or I'm going to set, certain things to do, I don't always get them done. So I'll tell other people when they're encroaching on my space, but when it comes to my own boundaries and my own limits and hopes for myself, sometimes I don't always listen to myself. And I thought that was a really good point. And I don't often include that type of thing and that type of concept in boundaries, but I agree with her point. I think boundaries with ourselves are really important. And actually, I don't think the answer here changes, because the reality is if we've decided, like in my personal diet, I always have a cheat day. And this week, of course, it's going to be the Super Bowl because I'm a little bit of a football nerd. And so my food cheat day is going to be this coming Sunday. That means I need to make healthier eating choices and habits until Sunday. I've still got a couple more days to go before I can have my wings and brownies. But here's the thing, is that I have to say no to the chips or to a burger or to a soda for the next couple of days until I get to Sunday. And that's going to suck. And I might feel held back. I might feel like I'm being deprived of something. I might develop a scarcity mentality, just like anybody who would be on the receiving end of an interpersonal boundary. And my answer to that doesn't change. I still have to suck that part up to get to the other side, because on Sunday, I want to eat what I want for as long as I want, as much as I want, without feeling guilty. And that might actually be kind of kept in a little bit of control because I have a doctor's appointment set for myself on Monday. So it's good boundaries on either side, right? Like you don't want to go into a physical after, binge eating all day. But it's that idea that for the next couple of days, even though I usually do a date night on Friday or do a takeout or something on Saturday to keep it easy for myself, I've decided that for my lifestyle, one cheat day works best for me. I have to be a little bitter, resentful, and disappointed until Sunday finally comes around. I think that that's just simply the way it works with boundaries, is that you have to sit in the discomfort. And I think people have this concept that if we believe in the idea, we don't have to sit in the suck factor. And I can tell you that it's going to suck not having junk food until Sunday. That doesn't change just because I absolutely believe it's the right thing to do for myself and that it's what I want and it upholds the quality of my life. I'm still going to be disappointed. Just like if somebody wants to hang out with me on Sunday and I have to say, unless you want to watch football, I'm unavailable, That's going to be disappointing because, not everybody gets my obsession with football. Not everybody supports my like for football. And certainly there's a lot of haters about the team that I root for. But if I sit in that discomfort, I get the life I want. I'm surrounded by friends, eating what I want in the kind of environment and the mood and the sense of self that I'm hoping for myself. But if I don't set a boundary with myself, or if I don't set the boundary with someone else, I'm left feeling bad, I'm left feeling manipulated, and I'm left feeling compromised. I have to sit in the shit a little bit to get to the other side of that boundary. And there's just no way to avoid that. And I wish there was, because I know that that's the thing that's really hard for people when they're coming up with boundary ideas for themselves, is this idea that they just don't want the hard part. But you have to work through the hard part to get to the other side where it's worthwhile. And it happens in conversations. It happens in how you choose to spend your time. It happens in how you choose to set your priorities, whether or not you're scheduling your priorities versus prioritizing your schedule. Boundaries come up in all kinds of ways, large and small. It's going to be an ongoing conversation here at Choose to Have It All. I certainly hope you'll join me in it as well. Come join the Choose to Have It All community group. Just use the search feature in the Facebook and you'll find us there. And we're a community of people who are working to build happier professional and personal lives every day. And we're willing to take the actions necessary to get there. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really happy to have you here. And until next time, thanks so much and have a good day. Bye-bye.